In this video we are going to take a closer look at the Indomitor Kill Team and how it has become a staple of competitive Army of Renown lists, up to the point where people are now successfully running two of them in a single list. Madness or genius? Let's find out. First, we will quickly look into some challenges of AOR list building and why the Indomitor Kill Team was struggling earlier in 9th edition. Then we will go through what exactly changed in order to make them more competitive in the Deathwatch Army of Renown and how we can make best use of those changes based on two example lists that have been successfully played at tournaments as of late. Lastly, there will be some modeling recommendations for the different datasheets in the Kill Team and a quick wrap up.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Tammer and I will be guiding you through this video.
With the introduction of the Kill Team Strike Force, our faction received both an incredibly thematic as well as highly competitive Army of Renown. Nonetheless, there are some difficulties when building such lists, mainly due to the limited availability of datasheets as well as the mandatory specialisms. This combination makes it quite challenging to hit that sweet spot between the right amount of kill teams and the characters to support them. As anyone building up to a 2k points list may well know by now, it is very easy to either end up with 4 beefed up kill teams and far too many characters, or with 5 kitted out kill teams and not much else to support them. While non-Army of Renown lists can easily solve such problems by throwing in some cheap utility like an Eliminator Squad, 5 vets or even pre-nerf company veterans, such attempts would be heavily punished in the Army of Renown, as even if you just bring a minimum of 5 vets in a kill team, you'd still have to equip them with a specialism. At first glance, the Proteus Kill Team seems the most flexible for maxing out the Army of Renown, simply because of the sheer number of datasheets and war gear options. In contrast, the Indomitor Kill Team has a reputation for being pricey, inflexible, and who wants those heavy intercessors anyway? As such, running two of them seems pretty counterintuitive. But is that really true? Personally, I think the Indomitor Kill Team had a bit of a bad start into 9th edition due to a series of mishaps. First, the poor availability of Heavy Intercessors. They just weren't available for months after the Codex release. Then the issue with Eradicators and the Kill Team being required to shoot at the same target in order for them to get total obliteration. Then Aggressors having transitioned poorly into 9th edition and being left on the shelf. And then lastly, of course, the Plasma Inceptors price increase that stopped the few competitive lists making use of such a kill team in their tracks. With such a bleak outlook and no further changes to these specific datasheets, what exactly changed? What keeps fascinating me about 9th edition is how fast the game advances due to frequent FAQs, balanced data slates, and of course new codex releases and the chapter approved mission packs. As a result, we now have the Army of Renown, Armor of Contempt, and updated missions directly affecting our lists. As far as the Army of Renown is concerned, I already did a full video about the comeback of the Aggressors and how both them and also Bolter Inceptors combine well with specialism Extremis. Link is in the description. But beyond that, some events are now also ruling auto-hitting flamers to work with the stratagem, which makes the Flamestorm Aggressors an alternative, and then of course due to the datasheet restrictions, an Indomitor Kill Team with Eradicators is now suddenly a far more appealing anti-tank pick when compared to a regular army list. Furthermore, Armor of Contempt gave a really nice boost to our primary skill teams. Both the Indomitors and the Fortis really needed that 5+ invul save from the Dominus Sieges before. Now they can more easily get away without. Last but not least, missions now favor troops more than ever. What better time to lean heavily into kill teams? Having said all that, As I already mentioned in my May tournament results video, what stood out for me was the recent success of double Indomitor Kill Team lists, namely the ones played by Darryll de Villiers at the US Open Seattle and Mikael Klangeby at the games of Westeros XI. I have covered these lists in greater detail in the previously mentioned May tournament coverage video, the link is in the description. As a brief overview, Darryll runs 4 kill teams only, 2 of which are Indomitors, one with Eradicators and the other with Flamestorm Aggressors, which allows him to easily fit in a Chief Apothecary and the Corvus Blackstar. Mikael, on the other hand, runs the more commonly seen 5 kill team kind of list, but he does a fairly unique mixture of datasheets for his Indomitors. One of them has 2 Boltstorm Aggressors and 3 Bolter Inceptors. This one is more commonly seen as a 4-1, while the other has 4 Flamestorm Aggressors and a single Bolter Inceptor for access to the stratagem. What both of them have in common, though, is that they make extensive use of combat squads. With only 4 kill teams, Darryll absolutely needs this in order to get enough independent units, while Mikael specifically made his second Indomitor for the purposes of playing the mission and scoring secondaries. This approach is different from the original intent of the Indomitor Kill Team seen in competitive lists, which basically lose them as one big blob for the purposes of specialism extremis, as well as stacking several layers of buffs on them. With these 2 lists in mind, what can we take away from this for our own lists? First and foremost, I think that running double Indomitor is not as costly as it first may appear. While Plasma Inceptors went heavily up in price, Bolter Inceptors actually became cheaper, and Aggressors have always been pretty affordable, it's just that they didn't see much play due to the other datasheets being more appealing prior to the Army of Renown. As we are seeing in Mikael's list, running 5 kill teams is perfectly possible with a clever combination of datasheets. Regardless of the amount of kill teams though, I think keeping combat squads in mind is absolutely essential in order to make these kinds of lists work. For a big blob of 10 with Extremis, I think the Boltstorm Aggressors are the better overall choice due to their range, but if you are looking to get Gravis combat squads with still decent mobility, having the Flamestorm Aggressors that you can advance easily mixed in is a great choice. By making use of combat squads, it is also possible to resolve the issues with the Eradicators requiring the whole kill team to fire at the same target. If you would just split off 5 Eradicators by themselves, this would result in overkill for most targets, and you lose the ablative wounds. By splitting 3-2 and 2-3 with the Heavy Intercessors, you can have each combat squad fire at a different target, and less overall shots are wasted, while the Heavy Intercessor act as ablative wounds for the Eradicators. As it currently stands, I think Mikael has a great combination of kill teams, with one being used for specialism extremis, while the other one splits up and runs off to play the mission. What I like about Darryll's list though, is that the way he runs his 2 Indomitor kill teams, he is less dependent on big CP heavy alpha strikes. This is also reflected by his comparably low starting CP of 6, reminds me of someone. But anyway, with the upcoming chapter approved changes cutting starting CP in half, this might end up being the more reliable way to go about building up an Army of Renown list. For a more detailed coverage of the Indomitor Kill Team, all its datasheets and competitive loadouts, feel free to check my previously released Kill Team guides linked in the description. Then last but not least, let's have a look at some modeling recommendations. In the past, I have done detailed videos on all the datasheets available to the Indomitor Kill Teams, including magnetizing guides. Link to these are in the description. But just to give you guys a quick overview, personally, I recommend magnetizing all of them. Yes, that's right, even the Heavy Intercessors. The reason for this is that Heavy Intercessors and Eradicators are in fact fully exchangeable, as both are using the same base Gravis model. While the Heavy Intercessors box only contains 5 bodies, it contains 5 fully customizable rifles, 3 additional single pose rifles, and then the Heavy Bolter version, so technically you can equip up to 9 Heavy Intercessors if you find 4 spare bodies, like those from the Eradicators for instance. The same then goes for the Eradicators, of course. You can borrow a heavy intercessor body to equip a 4th Eradicator with the heavy weapon contained in the original kit of 3. Unfortunately, both the Aggressors and the Inceptors are not that flexible, but at least their loadouts can be made fully exchangeable with the help of magnets. For the Aggressors in particular, I think at this point it is highly recommended to keep both loadouts handy. As we have just seen in the 2 competitive lists featured in this video, there is room for both of them and sometimes even in the same list. For the Inceptors, unfortunately, the Plasma variant is a bit overpriced for the time being, but it still has its play, and I would want to keep my options open for these. Who knows what the future points balance will bring. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have taken a closer look at the Indomitor Kill Team once more, and why running 2 of them suddenly does not seem like such a bad idea anymore, especially when it comes to our Army of Renown, the Kill Team Strike Force. Having had a bit of a bad start into 9th edition, what stood out to me during the May tournaments in particular were the 2 double Indomitor lists run by Darryll de Villiers at the US Open Seattle and Mikael Klangeby at the games of Westeros XI. While we had formerly seen a single Indomitor Kill Team run as a big blob in combination with the specialism Extremis stratagem, I think both of their lists perfectly demonstrate that there is more utility to be had beyond that. By making good use of combat squads, these can be used to play the mission and score secondaries, or just as a way to actually make Eradicators decent as part of a kill team. With the upcoming chapter-approved changes in mind, this might also be the way to go once we are stuck with a lot less starting CP. Then lastly, as always, I highly recommend magnetizing all of them, as especially the Heavy Intercessors and Eradicator can be used as either model. So that's it for the Indomitor Kill Team in the Deathwatch. Are you guys running 1 or even 2 of these yourself? Or are you planning to do so now that you have seen them do well in competitive play? Any success stories with the Indomitor Kill Team you want to share? Let me know in the comments. Finally, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. I do also have a Patreon page. If you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated as it helps me invest into future videos. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.